This is a story about a little girl whose mother made her a beautiful red cape. The girl and her mother went to a special shop called Clothkits. Here, clothes were designed in a kit with simple instructions so that you could make them yourself at home. There was a choice of different styles, all in a range of bright colours and playful patterns. The girl and her friends loved going to this shop, tucked away in the small town of Lewis. They would buy pinafore dresses to wear at school, with matching tops and woolly tights and comfy socks. They loved the patterns of lions and tigers, birds and butterflies, and cats and kites. The girl especially loved her cape, with its matching hat, headscarf, and hand warmer. She felt fabulous in her swishy fur-lined cape with its circles and stars and suns. She was given so many compliments when she wore it. She was proud to be the only girl in school with such an outfit. When she wore the flat hat with her cape, she imagined herself as a Russian princess. When she wore the headscarf, she felt like Red Riding Hood visiting her grandma. When I was a child, I had a purple Clothkits pinafore, and my brothers wore stripy Clothkits t-shirts. My mum was always very stylish and took an interest in fashion. I remember the hum of her sewing machine as she constructed clothes from Clothkits, Liberty and Laura Ashley fabrics, and the multicoloured balls of wool waiting to be knitted into a calf facet tapestry jacket. Shopping trips for clothes were always a shared adventure. I grew up with an appreciation of clothes and the pleasure that came from dressing up. The clothes we dress our children in reveal our attitudes towards children, to childhood in the past and the present, and our hopes for the future. They reveal our children's attitudes as an expression of identity. Children learn what to do with clothes from an early age, but rarely engage with their full potential. Clothes can teach children about creativity, self-expression, and the world we live in. By playing with clothes, children are given the possibility to create and to dream.
So in 1968, Clothkits was selected to be part of the Under-5s exhibition at the London Design Centre. The theme of the exhibition was educational toys and furniture for preschool children. This, at the time, was considered a neglected area of design. So Ed Newark, who had managed Abbott Toys and was at the time manager of Galt Toys, wrote to the Design Journal. He commented on how timely the exhibition was and how much he considered it to be an important area of design that needed some serious attention. Exhibitors included the designer Ken Garland and the future children's wear designer Janet Kennedy. At the time, she exhibited some screen-printed wooden toy soldiers that you can see at the bottom. Surprisingly, for an education-focused exhibition, it included an item of clothing, the first Clothkits kit. It was the only clothing item in the exhibition. This was due to the forward-thinking exhibition organiser, Philip Fellows, who had selected the design by a student, Anne Kennedy, the founder of Clothkits. So Anne produced the very first Clothkits design for this exhibition. It was a pinafore dress with matching pants. The pattern pieces were screen printed onto a length of fabric and all the haberdashery items were included. The benefit of this was that by skipping the paper pattern, it made it much quicker to make. And I actually have got, just so you can see, this is a reproduction of the very first Clothkits kit. And you can come and have a look at it in more detail later if you like. This is not the haberdashery that came with this kit, but this is an original packet, so also you can see how it worked, how it came together. So the pinafore and the pants, and you'll be able to sort of see that better later, were made with as few seams as possible. And in fact, the pinafore dress, which you can see the pattern there, had only one seam. So that made it quicker to sew and quicker to make. The kit was presented as an educational item because it was considered to be a means of introducing children to sewing. However, it was so much more. It is difficult today to fully appreciate how limited the patterns and the colours were for children in the 1960s and 70s because we have so much more available. The children's clothes market had only just started to change in Britain, and that was mainly in London. Previously, children were tended to be dressed as mini adults, but now fashion for children was becoming popular. There was some direct marketing to children through comics. So both Bunty, that you can see there, and Princess Tina were comics with a wide circulation that were aimed at pre-teens. The fashion content in Bunty was evident through the use of paper dolls, and in Princess Tina through adverts. If you look at these clothes, they are still very much like adult clothes. Even the models look older than pre-teens. Interestingly, Princess Tina regularly featured an advert on the back page for a kit form of clothing. So you would receive the pieces cut up, so the actual pattern pieces cut up, and you would get all the haberdashery included. But if you look at this cape, on the next slide, I'm going to show you the second Clothkits design, and you will see what a difference Clothkits made. Style number 2. It was a fur-lined cape that also had a matching headscarf, a hand warmer and a hat. The cape comprised of just one piece of fabric, you can see there on the pattern, so it was very simple to make. The colours were strong and bright with 60s style motifs, and the faux fur lining was luxurious for children's clothes. There are also obvious echoes of Red Riding Hood. The next slide is a photograph showing a girl whose mother had bought and made her the Clothkits cape. A large part of my research has been based on oral testimony, which has been interviewing people that wore Clothkits as children or who made Clothkits for their children. In this picture, it shows the girl wearing her cape on a school trip. She remembers wearing it to school and being proud that she was the only girl in school with a cape like this. She lived in Lewes, which was the home of Clothkits, and it was where the first shop was opened. She described how, as children, we had never seen stripes or bold designs before, or colours like purples, turquoises and oranges. She was aware just how different Clothkits was from the regular high street stores. Clothkits clothes appealed to both children and to adults. According to the respondents that I interviewed from all over the UK, it was the parents in the 1970s that chose the clothes rather than the children. It was not unusual for children to see the parents making clothes at home because this was a cheaper method to get clothes. Even though Clothkits had been chosen for the Design Council exhibition as a way of introducing clothes to children, based on my research, children rarely took part in the making process, even though they may have watched the kits being made. For parents, these clothes appealed because they were easy to make, hard-wearing, machine washable, easy to wear, and had coordinating accessories like tights and jumpers that were rarely found together. However much these factors may all have played a part, time and again, both parents and children said the main appeal was the patterns and the colours. The children's clothes that Clothkits created were designed as everyday clothes, but they weren't ordinary clothes, and nor were they formal or smart clothes. They fitted somewhere in between the everyday and fancy dress. Although ironically, when they did design fancy dress costumes, which are on this slide, they proved unpopular. They were clothes that stimulated the imagination, clothes that encouraged children to be children, with motifs of American Indians, Vikings, Mexican symbols, Polish paper cuts, various forms of folk art and animals. Some of the most popular designs were the farmyard and jungle jackets. These were composed of scenes just like in a children's picture book and came with toys to make and enough pockets for each toy to fit into. The Clothkit rag dolly, which you can see just here, was also very popular, and kits for children's clothes could be bought that included a matching outfit for the doll. Clothkits catalogues were key to what was mainly a mail order business. The catalogues provided a context for the clothes. In the pages lay a romantic and magical rural world and a version of childhood with kittens and ducks, tea parties and picnics. This world could be shared and indulged in by both adults and children. It offered a continuous narrative with seasonal instalments that told a story about regular characters as the same models were used in each catalogue. You could, in effect, grow up with Clothkits. In this sense, buying the clothes was not so different from dressing up as, say, Alice in Wonderland or Red Riding Hood. The writer and poet Claire Pollard, in her book Fierce Bad Rabbits, describes how, when we are small, the stories that are shared with us shape our world, our memories of childhood, and our understanding of the world. They allow us glimpses of other worlds. In a similar way, Clothkits did the same, and just like favourite childhood stories, they were remembered with great affection, passed down through generations, and rarely appeared out of date. It is quite common for parents to have saved Clothkits clothes that belong to their children to pass on to their grandchildren. Clothkits clothes contributed towards the shaping of childhood imagination in much the same way as picture books and stories do, even if in more subtle and intimate ways. They contributed towards the same imaginative freedom found in the magical fairy tale worlds of early childhood. The fact that young children are permitted access to more fantastical clothes in everyday life allows an imaginative experimentation that is not really available to adults. This is perhaps why the Clothkits clothes, when translated into adult clothes, never quite worked. Clothkits' children's clothes were different because they were clothes designed especially for children. Janet Kennedy said that she designed what she thought children wanted. Being trained as an artist rather than a textile designer meant that she was unrestrained by the constraints of a textile design training. In addition to this, the main creative influence in her life was teacher and lifelong friend, the artist and designer Peggy Angus. Peggy advocated art as a vital part of everyday life and saw folk art as the perfect example of this in practice, preferring to use the term magic art. The Clothkits designs, particularly those done by Janet Kennedy, often use forms of folk art. What became part of Clothkits' signature style was the incorporation of the same decorative techniques that are used in folk dress around the openings of garments. When I interviewed one of Janet's children, she described to me her childhood growing up with Clothkits and how she had been surrounded by pattern and colour. She made the point that it wasn't about being an artist. In fact, she became a scientist. As an adult, she had realised how important dressing up and making things had been in her childhood. It was about a way of seeing the world and experiencing the joy of creativity. She said she could not imagine a life without that. The next slide shows a collaboration between Janet and Peggy, depicting Janet's 4 children, and it is a hand-printed lino-cut wallpaper that is currently in Janet's kitchen. Clothkits, the wallpaper expresses a sense of the childhood that Clothkits' clothes represented. The children on horseback even wear the stripy tops and stripy tights that were typical of Clothkits.